Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast session. I'm so happy to have Iago Paromo. He's a partner of Dealer eProcess on today's podcast. Iago, longtime friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Well, today we're going to talk about units, your modern inventory management tool. But before we get into that, isn't it true you've been in this business 20 years? That's quite a milestone for people who don't know you. Where did you get started? What was the services that you were first providing to dealers?
It's been 20 years, which it is crazy to think about it. One good thing about this business is that it's so dynamic that time just goes fast. Some people say, "Oh, I've been doing something 20 years," and it sounds like a drag. And I don't feel that way. I feel I've been always learning and evolving. I started 20 years ago. I studied computer science at the University of Washington, and I was working at car dealerships on the weekends. And I started a photo taking business and grew to, I think that at one point we had 260 dealerships, and I still have that business nowadays. So I've had the business. I have clients in the automotive business. Yeah. This may sound amazing to some people. That have been my client for 20 years, nonstop. That's how I got into the business.
Well, I remember when we first met and everyone talked of you like, if you go into that Seattle market, you better know that Iago has all the connections. And well, it was so interesting to see how eventually you met up with Joe Gillespie from Dealer eProcess and started to recommend the website platforms to your clients, and now being a partner with Joe in the business. One of the things that dealers should know is that Dealer eProcess really builds their own software. They don't white label things. They have innovated a number of times in their website platform, but also in the tools that other people charge for. And today I want to talk about a product that competes with, say, a package of HomeNet plus vAuto, and it's called Units. So, Iago, this is an inventory management system built from the ground up from a modern perspective. Why did you feel that a product had to be developed in this category?
Yeah, so as a website provider, we manage inventory. So the dealership sends us inventory, and then we have to provide and or get inventory from the OEM for new cars. On coming into 2018, 2019, the OEM is providing more data for the new cars. So there's they're giving us. They started giving us some pricing and discounts and some things to automate the process a little bit. So data blending became very important in the last few years. So from a strategic point of view, as a website provider, it was just a much better service that we could provide to our clients. Then it came the fact that inventory is always the star of the show, right? If you got the right cars at the right pricing and you market them correctly, you're going to do good business.
That's
and right. Having an inventory system, we realize, okay, that gives us a tremendous flexibility on the things that our clients can do on how they showcase those cars on the website or third-party providers. Fast forward to today, and here we are managing feeds for Google Cars, Facebook Marketplace. I think that Craigslist was probably the first site that kind of started this. You manage your own feeds business. eBay. So the inventory system became a little bit more than just something that was there that we just had to pay a few $100 a month and kind of send feeds. I think that suddenly now became a little bit more of a center of action for what the dealership does.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those evolutions. Obviously, the cameras that we have today, I mean, remember the resolution back in the day for photos 20 years ago when you started. I mean, man, there were hard limits on how big of a file you could upload. Today, Apple cameras or Android phones are taking photos a few megabytes each. So we need a new bandwidth. Obviously, the internet can handle it, but we also have the desire to create custom feeds for different destinations. The photo overlays for Facebook could be very different, or should be able to be different from what you send to cars.com or our car gurus. So let's talk about some of these features in a modern inventory management system. How can we communicate to dealers that this platform has no size limitations and really can be customized like no other platform today?
So listen, 20 years ago, I remember I had a Sony camera. It was a Mavic.
Yes, I had one.
It was a brick. Like at the end of the day, your arms felt sore if you were holding that thing the entire day taking photos. And I remember we had one that had a disc, and it only fit, I forget, like 50 photos. And we were taking a couple hundred photos a day. So people will come at the end of the day to the office, and every single photographer had 4 or 5 discs. Like that was a nightmare. Then Sony had the little point and shoots, and we learned that they only took about 10,000 photos. After that, they broke. So fast forward nowadays, I think that, for the most part, we use the latest iPhones. Some people use DSLR cameras. They're great, but the iPhones are fantastic because you take the photos and they upload right away. But one thing that has changed is we took photos back then that were 640 by 480. That was the size that autotrader.com would take. And that was the size back then that the Cobalt Group, which that was the company doing most websites in 20 years ago, that was the size that they would take for databases. Nowadays, some companies are still doing the 640 by 480. I don't know you, but I have a huge screen in my desktop, mainly because I can use, I have one of these really long screens that allows me to open multiple windows.
Right.
Internet speed is not an issue anymore, whether it's upload or download. So one of the things that we did was we take super high resolution photos into the inventory database. And if a dealership really wants to take fantastic photos of their inventory or videos or 360s, anything they want to do, the new databases can handle all that stuff, and your customers can see it. And it's a very different experience when you see a small photo. And you and I are getting into our 50s, and we got to get really close to the screen to see those small photos. I really like to lay back and look at a really large, high resolution image when I'm thinking to buy a car.
Yeah, and that's especially for used cars when you're looking at the paint surface or scratches or imperfections. And of course, the better photo means the more confidence the buyer has, the more remote transactions can happen. What about these overlays? I see companies like AutoNation on a regular basis maybe have the pink, if it's the Drive Pink campaign, maybe the banners are pink. What if a dealer wanted to have an overlay for cars with a phone number on it, and an overlay for car gurus with a different phone number, and an overlay for Facebook with a different phone number? So if people called, they could start tracking that. In some inventory management platforms, having different overlays by destination is a lot of manual work. Is this automated in the units platform?
Yes, and it solves multiple issues. So one thing is tracking, right? So if you want, the system can create and manage a different overlay on every feed that you have. So you can have an overlay on CarGurus with one phone number. You can have a different overlay on cars.com with a different phone number. So that's from a tracking point of view. But then we get into now the social media era, right? I think that in the last couple of years, people are realizing that, all right, advertising on Facebook is fantastic. And now we have Google coming into this field, right? Google
with the Google My Business inventory feed.
So I believe that this is going to expand tremendously. I think that there is the reason why Google suddenly got feeds from every dealership and decided to put them on Google My Business. There is more to that story. I think that Google realized it is a fantastic opportunity that Facebook allows a dealership to say, I am just going to select trucks because I have an $8,000 cash back on trucks, and I want to spend my money advertising just trucks. So it allows you to really dissect and play with the inventory that you want to advertise, right? So I think that Google is going to play the same way. So how that plays with inventory is that our system allows a dealership that doesn't have a graphics designer on staff. So like if you're AutoNation, you can see that AutoNation has a different overlay when they put an ad on Facebook than the overlay that they have when they put an ad on autotrader.com. Very different. And you can see that AutoNation, if they're doing the breast cancer awareness month, they have a different overlay than they had the previous month. And this is very easy to do in our system and very economic to do because you can do this stuff without a graphics designer. We actually allow you to manage all these overlays by feed or by campaign in a way that you don't have to continually design and manage how they work.
Well, that is great news for dealers because I do know that dealers have not customized their feeds, have not been disciplined with tracking numbers because they just says it takes too much work. I love the fact that it's automated, and DEP has automated a lot of things with obviously the ability to create Google ads on the fly with your advertising technology, and using dynamic graphic building tools is a real powerful way in which the right ad gets served at the right time in the right environment. For example, ads on Facebook absolutely need to be different than Instagram, and both of those would be different from a Google, say, display ad. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. You know that many dealers have a HomeNet V-Auto combination. I want to get behind the fact that this units platform from Dealer eProcess is normally about half the price. So is it just that developing software to manage inventory today with the new tools, with cloud storage, is significantly cheaper than 10 plus years ago when these tools were developed? And you're passing these savings, or are you selling this at a loss just to gain market share?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, before I get into that, I'll tell you a little dirty secret about the overlays and the feeds. One big reason why dealerships had a hard time managing those is because some feeds will take a timestamp with the photo, meaning the database receiving the image knows when the photo was updated. So the database will refresh the photo. So for example, if I send a feed to cars.com and it's got an overlay, the next day I send the same feed and the timestamp is newer because I have updated the overlay. Cars.com will refresh the overlay. Make sense?
Yes, of course.
There are databases that don't take a timestamp and will not refresh the overlay. So the problem that we had in the past was if you send the same overlay to everybody, it would get stuck in a lot of websites. So that's why we built a system that allows to manage the overlays by feed. So we can tell the dealership, all right, listen, if you're going to send a feed to this, and these sites, that is not going to update. So we need to send an overlay that doesn't need to get updated. These other ones will update. Let's play with those. Does that make sense a little bit?
Totally smart, because if they're not going to accept a car with a new overlay, why go into the efforts to do it? And of course that makes complete sense. So tell me about the pricing strategy. Obviously, I know technology has changed, but you're coming at a very attractive price point with a modern set of features. 10 years ago, there were no cars being pushed to Facebook. In fact, 10 years ago, Car Gurus wasn't even really a thing that dealers got super excited about because it was almost like a scraped, process. So why is units from dealer eProcess so competitively and attractively priced?
Yeah. So, we think about vAuto sometimes, but then also they do what they do and we do what we do. So what I know is we build a database that can do both, that can do what HomeNet does and what vAuto does together. So, I don't want to say it's better or worse, it's just that's both. So one business, one database does the same thing that two businesses, two databases did. So from that point of view, we have a very different cost structure because now we have one server, one system. We're not transferring data from what it would be like HomeNet to vAuto. We don't have one team managing one and another team managing another one, right? So there's a little bit of a change. We were able to build it all together in one system. vAuto and HomeNet develop in a different way. HomeNet was developed 20 years ago by Jesse Vider, and back then nobody thought about something like vAuto, and then Dale Paul, years later, developed vAuto. So it's just a different evolution. So from that point of view, we are cheaper just because I think we have less management on from a systems point of view. The data that we use is the same. So we buy, we went out into the market and we said, okay, who can provide data to us? And we buy data from Black Book, Kelly, Mannheim, and JD Power. I mean, that's it. There's no other company that sells data. So we pay for the data, and the data has a cost. Whether it's $100 or $150 per each one of them. So we have that cost. We bring it in, and and that's it. In simple terms, we build our cost structure, and that's the pricing we came up with. So we're not at a loss. We make money, and we didn't build it thinking the strategy wasn't we want to be half of what vAuto is. We build a system, and this is the price that we came up with for our system, and it's a profitable company. So we don't have money behind us. We don't have 100 million behind us that allow us to be non-profitable for X amount of years somehow to cheat the market, and then we're going to raise the price on everyone. I mean, this is what it is.
Well, that's good to hear, Iago, because there are situations where dealers have been charged X that builds market share, and then there's big price increases. We saw that like with Car Gurus, right? I mean, they got everyone's inventory and it was an amazing platform, but Car Gurus run through this very aggressive pricing strategy, which of course made dealers feel uncomfortable, even though Car Gurus felt that they were providing more value. It was the perception of unmitigated, price hikes. So I love the fact that you're price competitive. I love the fact that it's a clean platform, but we're seeing this in other industries, Iago. The legacy companies, being number one isn't always the best, meaning we're seeing disruptors. When you think of Techion, which just this week got a $2.5 billion valuation, one of the reasons that investors are excited is they look at the incumbents like Reynolds and CDK that have legacy systems, old software, and that it would take a massive amount of money for them to rewrite all their software in today's modern architecture, modern framework to leverage cloud computing. So the fact that you're price competitive with the latest tools is something I think we're seeing everywhere. So for a dealer who is currently using HomeNet vAuto or another inventory management tool, what would you say, Iago, is another very popular inventory management tool that dealers switch over to units from?
What we find is that dealerships a lot of times have a combination of like they will use dealer specialties and vAuto, and then their website. I mean, sometimes it is so convoluted. The website provider will get the new cars from the DMS and send it to vAuto, and then dealer specialties sends the used cars to vAuto, and then vAuto puts all together and sends it back to the website. And there's no problem with that until you want to make a change, meaning like I want to change my business model. Like and suddenly we've seen that a lot in the last couple of years, meaning, I was selling 200 cars a month. I was selling 200 Toyotas every month, like a clock, right? So then suddenly Toyota sends you less units. The market is a little bit more compressed and you need to change your pricing strategy. And suddenly you realize that it's not that easy. Nobody knows exactly who is supposed to be grabbing what data. And so one of the things that I can tell you really helps a lot is when there's just like one company, that's it. Like, oh no, we grab the data from your DMS and that's the end of the story. We are the ones that manage that data everywhere.
That's a great point, Iago, because there is a number of things that are coming on the horizon with digital retailing, with the OEMs push into centralized inventory pricing and discovery websites, Stellantis, for example, GM, Hyundai, Nissan. And really, the dealer is going to need to be much more nimble with their pricing strategy, much more nimble with their merchandising strategy. And, I've seen more and more website. I know Dealer eProcess has that mega zoom feature, right? Where you're able to really zoom in on any part of the car. So what I'm hearing is cost savings, a single neck to choke, right? Single management platform with possibly, are you finding dealers double paying for services? Is it so convoluted that it's not just savings, but it's also eliminating some extra billing?
Well, so I don't want to say that there is a double billing, but sometimes what happens is if you have a company doing your used car feeds, you can't pay him $100. You got to, if that company has to have a person, you got to pay him at least $400. And then you have a company doing your new cars, and you can't just pay him $100. You got to pay $400. And each company has to fend on their own. So the total price, when you add everything together, it is higher than when we come and we're like, hey, we just have one person managing all of it.
Yeah, I see it.
So,
I see it. I see that.
we're just feeding one mouth, one database, one bandwidth bill, one, each database, I don't know how much nowadays about the cost of security on, databases. I mean, it's horrendous. All the companies like ours, like Dealer eProcess, we all use, whether it's Amazon or Google or Rackspace. I mean, there's no like that many more players.
Right.
And
Right.
the cost of security on having data in their systems, it is what it is. There's no discounts. It costs what it costs. So when you are paying, when you're paying three different companies to have your database in three different places, you're paying a little bit here, a little bit there, a little, So yeah,
It all adds up, though. I remember
up.
when we were developing VistaDash, and whether you use Cloudflare or CrowdStrike or some of these other tools. I remember one day we were getting a denial service attack, and our team was going crazy because it was just before NADA. It was almost like someone was sabotaging things. They didn't want us to be successful. So I'm very, very aware on how important it is to maintain uptime. In fact, I know Dealer eProcess, as part of your OEM programs, all members have to have a service level agreement, right? So certain percentage, 99 point something percent uptime. So I'm glad that this product is housed in that same hypersensitive, hyper secure environment. Yago, there are people who are listening to today's podcast and they listen, if I can save half on what I'm paying, get a more modern infrastructure with more flexibility, with some auto graphics tools. Obviously, you already feed Google My Business with the inventory feed, which is the latest kind of sexy thing with inventory. How do people schedule a demo of the product?
Yeah, so let me say that you don't have to use a Dealer eProcess website in order to use this product. You can, the same way anybody can call Viauto and use Viauto and HomeNet or Dealer Specialties, same thing with units, right? So you don't have to be a Dealer eProcess customer. In fact, I think that we have about 600 non-website users in the inventory side. Okay, so
that's great.
And if anybody wants a demo, they can shoot me an email. My email is my name at dealereprocess.com, Yago, YAGO at dealereprocess.com. And been doing this 20 years. I mean, I think I can do a demo just fine.
Yeah, I am sure. When I first met you, that's what I knew. Yago was running the inventory photo business. I know that Dealer Specialties hated trying to sell dealers in your market. They were so happy with your work. So you pretty much dominated then and still now. And that's a testament to the innovation and the heart you put into the automotive community. So dealers, if you are looking for upgraded tools with modern bandwidth and modern features, again, just reach out to Yago, YAGO at dealereprocess.com. And if this is the first time you're listening to a podcast, you should know that every week I release another podcast with industry disruptors, leaders, and innovators to help automotive retailing evolve to what we call a modern retailing experience, where the customers win, the dealers win, and we have a better work environment for our employees. Keep in mind that in just a few weeks, the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit will be held November 14th through the 16th in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, at the O Spa and Hotel on Palm Beach Island. It's the most amazing time to visit Palm Beach, Florida. The weather will be perfect. And the Dealer eProcess team is a sponsor and will be at the show. So if you're going, make sure you get a demo of the Units software. Then Yago, thank you once again for being on the show. And for all our listeners, we'll catch you next time on another podcast session.
Thank you, Brian.